All right, so welcome back to Revelation in 5 Minutes. This is installment number 3, and we talked about the title of the book. The title of the book is The Apocalypse of or About Jesus. Apocalypse doesn't mean something dangerous, scary. It means that something has been revealed. Today we're going to talk about the author, or the human author, of the book of Revelation. Now, I'm going to be summarizing two books, one fairly short, one fairly long. One is by the British scholar Richard Bauckham, and the book is entitled Jesus and the Eyewitnesses. The other is by the late Raymond Brown, who was a Roman Catholic New Testament scholar, and he wrote a magisterial work on the book of the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and he wrote that for the what was then called the Anchor Bible Commentary Series. It's now being renamed the Yale Bible Commentary Series, but it is still considered one of the standard works for understanding what's called Johannine literature. And what we mean by Johannine literature, it comes from the word John, and it just means literature that has been written by John or has somehow been influenced by John. So, what we know about the person that wrote the book of Revelation is that he lived in Asia Minor. Now, let me go back for just a minute. Paul tells us that by the time of Jesus' death and resurrection, there were 500 eyewitnesses who knew Jesus and followed him in his earthly life. Of those 500, at least 3 of them were named John, and all 3 of these men lived in and around Western Asia Minor. And all 3 shared in some pastoral responsibility for the churches that were in that area. Now, why that's important is that we know that one of them wrote the book of Revelation, but we don't know which one. It may not have been one of the original 12 disciples of Jesus. It was one of the 500 eyewitnesses, but again, we're not sure. It could be that the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and the book of Revelation were all written by the same person. But there's another possible explanation as to why there's so much in common between these five books of the New Testament, and why they share similar ideas and language and ways of speaking about Jesus. And that could be simply because they came out of the same community of faith, all which had been influenced by these 3 men named John. And that may be all that they have in common, is that they came from the same community of faith, and they'll share some common ideas and some common language. What we know about the Gospel of John, for instance, is that it came out of the same community. But it may not have even been written by the man named John. It may have been written by, when you read it, it has a heavy influence of one that is called the beloved disciple, and that could have been actually Lazarus. But anyway, that the Gospel of John is tied to the same community, comes out of the same community of faith, and that community of faith has been influenced by John, 3 Johns. Okay, so what do we know about the human author of the book of Revelation? Well, we know that he was quite old by the time he wrote the book of Revelation. Eusebius, some of the ancient church fathers tell us that he was in his 90s. And again, we know that he was one of the 3 Johns that lived in this community, from which all 5 writings, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, the Gospel of John, and the book of Revelation came. And that really is everything that we know about that human author. But that tells us quite a lot. That gives us quite a lot to go on. We know that the book of Revelation was written to this community in Asia Minor. We know that it was heavily influenced by these 3 pastoral figures named John, and one of these Johns wrote the book of Revelation. I'm Eddie Bromley. I'll check back in with you soon.